Order the February 6th Public Safety Meeting. Shall we rise for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda, any changes or additions to the agenda?
There are no changes.
Move the agenda.
Move supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Approval of the minutes. Any changes or addition, corrections, whatever, to minutes?
I was looking at Jacob. You can't make the motion. He seconded on accident. Oh, I didn't record that. I recorded you. Oh, I didn't say it. Listen, it came.
So,
Okay, so we need the minutes still.
Okay, I'll move the minutes.
There we go.
is there a second? Who is this? Who is the second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. We are now at limited public comment. First time, there will be another opportunity at the end. Anybody wishing to speak, come to the podium. Do not see any responding. Moving on. The Sheriff's Office report. Went too fast.
Good timing.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Sorry for the delay. I was at the investiture for the new judge. The highlights for January of this year. Deputies responded to a report of a man armed with a knife in the 2900 block of Meisterat Lane. A male grabbed 2 different kitchen knives and was threatening to commit suicide. 2 other adults and 3 kids were in the house and unable to get out. We went in and were able to take custody of him in his bedroom. He was transported to Sparrow Hospital for psychiatric treatment. January 3rd, Eaton Rapids Police Department pursued a truck from town out to Spicer Highway. The truck crashed at Royston Road and the driver fled on foot. We assisted in the search with a drone. The suspect was located by our K-9 unit that tracked him to a deer blind and he was arrested. January 7th, deputies responded to a report of a man that was cooking on a small fire he had built out in front of Home Depot. A records check showed that he had an extraditable criminal sexual conduct warrant out of Florida. He was arrested and lodged in our jail, and he will be going to Florida. Deputies recovered a stolen vehicle at the 5000 block Old Lansing Road. The owner of a 2025 Kia lives just inside Lansing Township on Waverly. She started her vehicle in the morning remotely and the app, and the vehicle was taken. The owner tracked the vehicle here and has shut it down remotely so it couldn't be driven. A male was located in the vehicle and admitted to stealing the vehicle. January 8th, stolen vehicle, shots fired call at Village Green. A male was warming up his car and someone jumped in and drove off. He also had multiple people say they heard a female yelling no and then heard one shot fired. A tall black or Hispanic male was seen running east. Deputies located the vehicle on the other side of the apartment complex. We did not locate the victim of the reported shots fired. On January 11th, Lansing Police Department recovered a stolen vehicle in the 900 block of Westmoreland in the city of Lansing. This vehicle was stolen from KinderCare West on West Saginaw on New Year's Eve. The caller believed juveniles coming in and out of different houses on the 900 block of Westmoreland are the ones who had been using the vehicle. Later in the day, we assisted Lansing Police on a shooting at Oakland and Jennison. A K-9 track ended at the 900 block of Westmoreland. It was a very hectic scene, and it appeared that the same vehicle was dropping off different victims with gunshot wounds at different hospitals. We stayed on the scene and assisted Lansing Police. January 24th, deputies took a child abuse call in Bellevue. The children had injury marks, and this was reported to Child Protective Services by a mandatory reporter. We assisted CPS in an interview of the two children who had injuries. We interviewed their stepfather, who admitted to hitting them. He was arrested and lodged for child abuse 3rd degree. Same day, deputies investigated retail fraud at Walmart. 2 subjects were stealing from Walmart. One was the lookout and was found to have fentanyl on him. When arrested, he said he swallowed some drugs, so we took him to the hospital until he was medically cleared before taking him to jail. The other male suspect ran when deputies got on the scene. Deputies were able to catch him and take him into custody. He had a variety of drugs on him and was arrested and lodged for resisting, obstructing, and several more charges. This is a continuing problem with people when they get arrested. They always claim they swallowed drugs. So their spin on this is maybe the officer won't take them to jail because they've taken this drug. That's not the case. We're going to sit on them until they're cleared from the hospital and then they're going to jail. But there should be additional charges. A lot of time spent at the hospital with these people that do this trick of theirs. Deputies took a report of a stolen 2021 Kia Forte at Runaway Bay Drive. It was last seen by the owner on January 23rd around noon. On the 25th, the deputy located the vehicle and attempted to stop it, and it fled. The vehicle appeared to have 2 young children as passengers, so we terminated the pursuit. We had contacted Lansing Police, who said this vehicle was involved in a larceny at Applebee's in the city as well. January 26th, we again assisted Lansing Police Department. Took a call of a suspect driving by and shooting into buildings off Grand River. Lansing Police found the truck and pursued the vehicle near Grand River and Waverly. During the pursuit, the male driver shot at the Lansing police officers. We responded to assist. A DeWitt Police Department officer ended the pursuit by intentionally ramming the truck near the Love's truck stop, and the male was arrested. They used what's called a pit maneuver. On January 27th, Lansing Police Department had a shooting occur on the north end of the city. Lansing Township Police located the suspect car shortly after and stopped the vehicle on Moores River Drive and Waverly Road. Deputies again assisted them with a stop and getting people secured from the vehicle. Multiple guns were found in the vehicle. January 29th, we, along with the Charlotte Police Department and the Michigan State Police, assisted Eaton Rapids. And as an emergency backup, the Eaton Rapids PD went to a house on Lake Street to assist with the report of a fire and illegal burn. The suspect threatened the Eaton Rapids police officer with a chainsaw. They tried to tase him, but it was unsuccessful. The suspect ran home and barricaded himself in his room in the basement. We assisted in making entry and arrested the suspect. On January 30th, we had a fatal crash around 8:56 a.m. We responded to a personal injury crash on Battle Creek Highway in Ainger. A SUV was traveling southbound on Battle Creek Road and was struck within an intersection by a SUV traveling northbound on Ainger. The driver of the SUV heading southbound on Battle Creek Road was a 68-year-old male from Charlotte who was pronounced deceased at the scene. The driver of the SUV was headed northbound on Ainger Road, was transported to the hospital with minor injuries. The crash is being investigated by the Eaton County Sheriff's Office Crash Reconstruction Team and the Detective Bureau. In total, the Eaton County Sheriff's Office was assigned to 2,580 calls for service in the month of January. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Any questions for the sheriff? So the next thing is under number 6, a memorandum of agreement with the University of Olivet. Was somebody going to speak to that?
We've been approached by the Olivet University in regards to having a SRO, School Resource Officer. They want to do it with the Sheriff's Office. They will be applying for a grant. This grant is through the state of Michigan. This would begin, if it was approved by the board, because it's going to take the chair's signature for this grant to go through to the state. This wouldn't take effect until August of this year. I understand the difficulties this county is in financially. I understand the controller's office is down one person who is in charge of grants. I would offer our assistance in assisting getting these grants taken care of. I think this is a win-win situation. No matter if the millage passes in May or if it fails, the grant is there. And also, if we do win the millage, which I'm hoping that we do, it'll be a win-win situation for both the Eaton County Sheriff's Office and Olivet University.
Have any questions from someone? Go ahead. Commissioner Rocha.
Afternoon, Sheriff. So how much is that grant, the dollar amount on it?
I believe it's 400,000 is what they're applying for, Captain?
They're applying for the grant, they want to cover, I'm sorry.
Go up here.
The grant they're applying for, they want to cover the wages fully. Right now, obviously, we don't know what the wages and benefit package would be for all of next year. The numbers that they have on there right now are for 125,000 for 80 hours worth of work. And part of that hours would be this year, all of next year, and then, 2026. So we don't have the exact numbers, but their intention is to try and pay for 100% of it or as close to as they can.
But the 400,000, wasn't that for additional security things that they were doing at the university?
Yeah, that grant does cover a lot of other things too. They're trying to up their security. They've actually been working already with Sergeant Barber, who's here today, on a lot of their protocol for campus safety, and this grant would help cover a lot of that, like locks for outside doors, some more maps that they're doing, and just overall security and training for their staff.
And would that position require a vehicle also?
It would, and I believe that the money they have in there would account for that vehicle as well.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you remind me, do we have these contracts with anybody else in the area? Do we have another school resource officer? I thought we partnered with somebody on one of these
Yes,
a
we
while
have
back.
two. We have Maple Valley. We also have Waverly Schools.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Need a motion to move this and a second?
I'll move it.
Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any? Motion carried.
Thank you.
The next item would be the resolution to approve the BJA FY '25. Someone speaking to that.
That'd be me. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Coleman. I've met most of you. Some of you I have not. I'm the administrative captain for the sheriff's office. So this grant, I know it's in your packets, and it's a lot to get through. I do have to start with saying that this is all Captain Block's idea. He's the one that did the legwork. I'm here to speak to it because grants falls under my position, and so does training, and this is absolutely has to do with training. So what we're doing is we're applying for a virtual reality site-based initiative to enhance our training at the sheriff's office. A lot of the training that goes on now is virtual reality-based, where we can expose our people to a plethora of different situations that you would encounter in the real world. This is something that we would use for active shooter training, de-escalation, all kinds of different responses. You name the type of situation you want to put into this computer system, and we can teach our people and expose them in a quick, efficient, and real manner. I'm looking at this a couple different ways. Just like the sheriff said, I know this county's struggling. I know here this is a grant where we have to put in for reimbursement after we purchase these items. Everything is fully covered, but of course we'd have to front that money and then we would be paid back. The optics of it, for me personally, I don't like it. But let me continue forward. The grant is due in March. If this millage is to pass in May, we can't go back 2 months and say, hey, it'd be great if we can apply for that grant, that the window closed in March. Our thought is this is something that we can apply for and make a decision in the coming months on if it's something we want to proceed with. Just because we're awarded this, if we are awarded it, does not mean that we have to push forward with it. Secondly, this is something we could use for our corrections division. We can put them through all types of training, whether or not we have a road patrol, which is yet to be seen. We will have corrections, we will staff the jail, and this is something that's very important for our corrections deputies as well. There's different aspects to this grant where we would like to open it up to surrounding agencies where we can help them. We could have training days where they could come and put their staff through this training. I've spoken with the Mid-Michigan Police Academy here at LCC in Eaton County. This is something they fully support and something that we could take to them to use to help train different officers that are coming to our office and the Tri-County area, if you will. I'm unaware of any type of indirect cost with this. There is a warranty for maintenance service for the equipment and anything that's involved that lives for the life of the grant as well. This isn't something we would be doing on overtime. It's actually something that would save us money. In order to do this type of training and these types of scenarios in-house, we typically need 5 or 6 volunteers to come in to help us run it. And we can't afford to have those people come off the road to do it. These types of trainings are typically done on overtime. We're hopeful that this would cut down on that. In addition, the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards began mandating in 2024 certain hours of training that our sworn officers have to participate in. And it's a range of different topics that are required now to keep your license and to get funding from the state of Michigan. This would help us to allocate those hours in that training to comply with that standard. It's difficult right now to be able to get our people the training that they need and run them through scenarios, give them hands-on training to comply with that standard. We're hopeful that this would cut down on the sheer work it takes to be able to get our people the training in a real-life instance when we can do it in virtual reality and benefit all across the board. I can answer any other more specific questions. I know, like I said, that packet, it's a lot of information in there, and I'm struggling to understand all of it all at once as well.
Question,
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I understood this correctly, but I want to double check with you. So we have to be reimbursed, but we will know we have the grant before we make the purchases of those.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yep, and we're working with a company, and they actually have specialists that are helping with the grant, so we know that this is how it goes. Livingston County just received this grant, which is how it was brought to the attention of Captain Block. He did some legwork and brought it back here because he thought that this could be something that we could use here in the future. But, you know, so far the assurances we have is, yes, we would have to purchase it and then it's reimbursed, but we would never be purchasing anything that is not already approved under the grant itself. And like I said too, it caused me to pause too. But then you start thinking about it. I'd hate to be in the situation in May, like, man, that sure would have been nice. I wish we would have just applied.
Well, honestly, as long as we know we have the grant before we start making the purchases, that eases my mind, honestly. My follow-up question is the quality of training that you get with something like this versus when you have to bring specialty, people in to do the training. Do you put it on par, above, below?
It's at least on par, if not better. The type of equipment that they send us, I mean, we can use a flashlight in this virtual reality world. Any type of firearm that you want. The people that are running it, we'd have 2 or 3 people that are trained in running the program, where depending on how someone's responding in that situation, we can have another subject pop up where now it's escalating or an innocent person comes in, how are they gonna handle that? I think it was a year or 2 ago, me and Captain Black participated in some training where we saw this type of program over at Livingston, and it was very well received. The amount of things that you can do are just, it's endless. Compared to, I can go to our training room or our training house, we could take this anywhere and be immersed in that room and have different things occurring, different schools, different police departments, factories, churches. You put on that headset and you are there, and now these things are happening, and it really kind of trains the mind and trains the person to be able to respond appropriately.
Excellent, thank you. That's my last question.
So they are real places in the community that are in the headset then?
Correct, yep. It's both real world and there can be, if you will, fake places. But you can immerse yourself and you can set it up for this room and you would do a scenario in this room, or we could be back at the training room and we could just pick a random lunch hall, if you will, or a static church dynamic if you wanted to, but you can also tailor it to wherever you personally are at that time.
I'll just note one thing. We started doing a new process where we're asking the departments to answer questions. And if you look on page 22 and 23, you'll see the questions that they were asked to complete. Did a great job with that.
Thank you.
Coleman.
Right.
So it gives you an idea of how the grant works, what the requirements are, and if there are any questions that you have additional, then you could ask them. But they answered everything completely that we asked.
Commissioner Toomey?
Thank you. So just one quick question. So let's say you map that to this room. The trainee can walk around in this space, like they can move around and not like run into a wall or?
Yep, so the system, and I'm not gonna pretend that I understand everything, but there are zones. And if you start going to that zone, there's an alert, and you always have one or two people there that are like, nope, you gotta step left. So the exact movement might not be the same. It might only take me 2 steps to get to where you are in that virtual world, but you're still in this room and you're still responding and reacting appropriately. So there's a zone boundaries that you set up that would take it off course if you are going towards the window or what have you, so there's no hazard involved.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering if they had to sit in a chair or whatnot. And then I have one more question as well. And this is, I mean, this grant application, do we have the capacity to do this right now? I know, Sheriff, you mentioned a little bit of this at the beginning, but just wanted to hear the perspective of this is going to have to go through the administrator's office eventually, right? So, I mean, what does that look like for us right now?
Well, today, not really great, but into the future, when this grant would be awarded, we should be staffed with a grant accountant. The other piece, they'll write the narrative, we do the financial. So there will be some purchasing requirements, and I have not talked to them yet about that we have to follow the federal requirements related to getting a bid and going out, and this would be different because it is a specialty piece of equipment.
Correct.
But we would go through that process, and we can work with the sheriff's department to do that. So it's federal reporting, it's a piece of equipment, we're not putting personnel through it, so it's not like, detailed reporting, just making sure they get the invoices. We have to ensure that we have canceled checks for whatever was purchased, and then we send those in. So this isn't one of the large-scale grants that create a lot of problems.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Duosha?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking in the future, should this come to pass, what are the long-range benefits for Eaton County other than training our own personnel? Is it something that we can reach out to other communities, and if that's possible, can we charge them for this service?
So I don't know, I mean, the charging wouldn't be up to me, but this is something that we would want to open up to all of the agencies in at least Eaton County. Like I said, I spoke with the director at the Mid-Michigan Police Academy, and this is something that we could, I'm there at least once a week anyway with our trainees and our recruits that are in the academy. We also have a training deputy that's there at least once a week helping our people, and this is something that we could take to them. And, being able to lay it out so it's not just a benefit for us, we think kind of reinforces that we're trying to do our best to expand this training to everyone. For us, what Captain Block and I and Sergeant Barber and the sheriff and everyone would love is to be able to pull one person off the road at a time and run them through 30 minutes of training a day. That would be terrific. But to be able to do that, you need 6 or 7 of us here at the office to do it. With this, we could have a cycle of people come in for 30 minutes. We're going to run you through 3 different scenarios in this virtual reality world, and you go back out on the road. We'd like to be able to open that up to Charlotte Police Department, Eaton Rapids Police Department, Grand Ledge Police Department, as long as we can and get the buy-in, which is the next steps. This is the application process. It's no guarantee, but we're hopeful, and we don't think we'd even get a response on the grant until after the millage. I'm not sure how long exactly it takes, but this would be due in March, and they wouldn't even look at it until then.
And then, so that piece of equipment then becomes the property of Eaton County.
It does, yep. It'd be two separate pieces. We could have one in the Delta office, we could have one here. We could travel with it. It's nothing that's huge for you to set up. And that would mainly be me and Deputy Swigert, our training deputy, who would be the ones trying to get this out there to train as many people in our county as we can. As the sheriff said, we've assisted multiple police departments. So I think the more people that use it and have a chance to use it and work with us, the better it is for everybody in this community.
Okay, thank you. And the optimist that I am, in in the future, is this something our IT department can manipulate, upgrade, repair, or do we have to have a contract with someone for this?
I'd have to speak with Mr. Daly on that, but for at least the life of the grant, it'd be the company itself that would take care of all of that. For upgrading, I'm not sure, they'd have to speak to that. And maintenance, it's standalone computer system, but we know at least for the life of the grant that they would take care of all the necessities for that.
All right, thank you.
And the other piece I'll note too, I know as far as being concerned about if the millage does not pass, with a grant like this and any other grant, you can apply for the grant, but you don't have to accept it. There's a step process, application and then acceptance. So that's something that you can consider later if the sheriff couldn't do it, so.
Right, circumstances could change. You know, I just kept thinking that if we get to that point, I don't want to sit here and look back and think, now I want to go to them and ask them for hundreds of thousands of dollars when we could have just tried in March and see where it goes. I don't know the future just like you guys, but I appreciate the time and the attention and the thoughts on it for sure.
What are the constraints on the number of scenarios you can have? Or
I don't know that there are constraints from what they've told me and from what me and Captain Black saw. I mean, it could be thousands of different scenarios, whatever you can come up with.
so how is that sort of information stored?
It is basically on demand. You can download the basic scenario, but then there is a way to change the things that happen as they go. If your deputy, let's say, is not using the de-escalation you want, then you have that suspect or maybe that crying witness step up their emotions. And then as they start to build on the cues of, okay, I'm gonna settle this person down, you have them settle down. If they're not paying attention to their surroundings, maybe you have another suspect enter. And it's interchangeable as you do it. I'm not aware that any of it is actually stored except for maybe, you know, if we came and did a photo of a courtroom or something like that, you might be able to pull that out as a template. But then it's interchangeable what you do with it from that point on during that training session.
So how difficult is it to include new location templates? And
Well, it's a successful company and they're having police officers do it. Can't be that hard, is I'm hopeful. It's not. I'm hopeful we can figure it out. From what me and Captain Black saw at Livingston and the day we spent there, it will take some training, which they provide to us here, and then we can reach out to them if we have any support questions. But I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to figure it out as we go for sure, and we'll have them to refer to if we need them, like anything else.
Any other questions for him? Need a motion and a second?
Thank you, everyone.
I'll move it.
support?
Moved and supported. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. Motion carried. Central Dispatch, can we have their report?
Good afternoon, Kelly Cunningham, Eaton County 911 Director. First up is my monthly report. We are in process with Technology Services, working on the law enforcement mobile computer terminal. We call them MCT replacement. And what that is the computers that are in all the law enforcement vehicles in Eaton County. It's not just the Sheriff's Department. So it's the agencies we serve, like Charlotte, Eaton Rapids, Grand Ledge, Potterville, so all the police departments. It is time to get those upgraded and switched out. So we are starting with the smaller communities first, and we are holding off on ordering the computers for the Sheriff's Department till after May, so till we have more answers on that. There is an open hiring process for one telecommunicator vacancy. I do have someone in the background phase, and we do have people on the hiring list. We also have one internal hiring process for a supervisor vacancy. As I said last month, Supervisor Richard Thacker is intending on retiring on May 31st. If you ever listen to the radio, he's the one with the radio voice, and I'm talking about like entertainment radio voice. So I'm sure all the officers and first responders out there will miss his voice. But he is, his plans to sail away, and I don't know that he'll come visit very often, but we do have one internal applicant for the supervisor test. There are some in their union contract, some things that they have to have in order to apply for that position, and that includes being a communications training officer. They have to, there's a time constraint that they have to be there for 4 years or have some prior experience in a PSAP. The test for that is scheduled for March 3rd, and that is a 50-question test that is a test that is sent out, and then they create the questions, but it's used with all of our policies, procedures, and union contracts so that we can ensure that they are knowledgeable in those areas. Last Tuesday, we had 2 Calhoun County Area Career Center students that have started their internships with us. They will be with us every Tuesday and Thursday, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, until March. And then also Calhoun County Career Center sends them to the 40-hour basic training, which is a state mandate training. So it's pretty cool that they are funding that for them because it makes them a very desirable applicant in the 911 industry if you already have that basic training under your belt. Also, Francis DeVetter, my deputy director, he taught the Michigan Public Safety Communication System and user training to the Eaton County Firefighter 1 and 2 class. So those are new firefighters that are becoming certified, and we always make sure that we provide a radio training class so they know how to talk to us if they need to. And last thing on my monthly report is, and it's not on your paper anywhere, but I was notified last week that Eaton County 911 has been honored with the Outstanding Call Center of the Year Award. And this is by NG 911 Institute, so that's Next Generation 911. It's a prestigious recognition that celebrates overall excellence in serving the public, managing emergency situations, and deploying new technology in the field of emergency communications. The award will be presented at the upcoming National Emergency Number Association 911 Goes to Washington event in Washington, D.C. So we are honored, and I am happy that we are being recognized at a national level, that I have some awesome staff. So that is all I have for my monthly report. Any questions on that before I move on?
Commissioner DeRoche to start.
Well, congratulations, Kelly. That's a neat award. We're going to have a plaque with the whole staff's picture on it someplace.
Our hallway is a giant plaque with all of their beautiful faces. So I make sure we get pictures of them and display them on the wall. So we
Great.
call it the Faces of Eaton County 911.
All right, great. Well, thank you, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Commissioner Christensen, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say congratulations as well. And I was actually going to bring this up, and then you said this, so it kind of coordinates together. I've had 2, one resident and one non-resident, reach out to me and express their gratitude for our 911 operators and central dispatch. Both had totally separate incidences, but they were more than beyond grateful for the compassion and help and care that they needed in their time of calling 911.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Your people are doing great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, next report.
All right, so my annual report, sorry, it is 40 pages long. I'm not gonna bore you with it. But the joke is that dispatches, we call this our yearbook. We actually print copies, and we have one copy that we all sign. Yes, we're dorks, it's fine. But I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm pleased to provide you a brief overview of Eaton County Central Dispatch achievement in 2024. This past year, we prioritized advancing technology, enhancing staff training, strengthening our partnerships. We successfully introduced cross-training and succession planning to ensure operational continuity and fostered professional growth. Our tactical dispatch team was deployed for various events and incidents. Our public relations team remained actively engaged in the community. In response to a local need, we also introduced the Eaton County Car Seat Safety Checkup Program. We took time to celebrate the incredible work our staff does every day during National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. We also recognized Years of Service Awards, honored Libby Howland for being named APCO International's Line Supervisor of the Year. And we celebrated Eaton County and Clinton County 911 teams for receiving the Michigan APCO Team Award. In 2024, we managed close to 90,000 calls for service with a strong emphasis on supporting law enforcement, EMS, and fire response. Our dedicated team, we had over 3,800 hours of training to ensure that we were ready for emergencies. And I'm incredibly grateful for the dedication of our staff and the support from the agencies and citizens we serve. As we move into 2025, we're committed into finding new ways to improve and continue delivering exceptional service. If you do go to the Eaton County 911 webpage within the county website, the digital document of this annual report is there, so feel free to share if you would like.
Thank you, Kelly. Any further questions you might have for her on our annual? No questions? Move on to your action item, is it? The radio surcharge?
So surcharge projections. I'll give a little bit of history. In 2017, voters approved the 911 phone surcharge, which is entirely separate from the 911 millage. The current monthly surcharge is $1.65, and the funds collected from this surcharge are designated for maintaining the radio system used by the first responders, ensuring clear and reliable communication during emergencies. It is important to note that these funds cannot be used for general 911 operations. So it was passed in 2017 at $1.75, and in 2019, every year we have to look at the surcharge projections, make sure that the numbers, what we are projecting is actually what we're bringing in as revenue. And in 2019, before COVID, we did drop it to $1.65. The past few years, we have stayed steady at $1.65. After COVID, the cost of radios increased quite a bit. And some future projects we have. So our plan is, when we created the radio project back in 2017, is that radio replacement after 10 years. So that's when they're out of warranty. We would take our current radios and sell them, but after we replace them, and then they would be under warranty. Other things that we're kind of looking at, if you've been on the board, Grand Ledge does have some coverage issues. So we are keeping an eye on that. Right now in the schools, we have what you call BDAs. Basically, it's an amplifier so that the radios do work in the schools, because some of the landscape in Grand Ledge just makes it difficult for those radio waves. And then also a pole barn right now when we do any radio maintenance. So Eaton County Central Dispatch manages all the radios. If we're doing any maintenance, putting them in cars, trying to fix anything, we're doing that out in the weather. So if it's negative below and they need a radio fix, we're doing that. So those are just kind of some ideas that we're looking at for the future. As the projections, if you see the debt that is in yellow, that is our annual payment, and what that includes was all of our infrastructure and equipment for first responders. So that's all our new towers, all the radios that were purchased for police, fire, and EMS. And the top one, the surcharge of $1.75, that is If we were to move it back up to $1.75, what the projections would be, $1.65 is what we currently are at, and $1.55, those are the projections for that. You don't have to make a decision. I need to just have an answer by May. So I like to bring this early. But my recommendation is to keep it at $1.65 right now. The cost of radios in a few years is, we don't know what that's going to be. Obviously, after COVID, they raised quite a bit. So my recommendation is keeping it at $1.65. If that's what you would like to do, all I need is a motion and approval at this level. If we are going to change it, then it has to go to full board with a resolution.
Thank you. Any further questions for Kelly?
Are we looking to make a motion on that today?
I would motion to pass it on to the full board.
You don't have to do it today.
Yeah, you don't have to do it today. If
May.
you want to look over the numbers or ask me questions before then, that's why I like to give it early. I don't like to, say, hey, I need an answer today. I like you to be able to ask questions, look over the numbers. So it's really up to this board.
I mean, I guess my point would be that I'm going to rely on our director's best judgment. If you're saying $1.65, I would move to put it there.
And this does go on to the full board,
No, it does not have to, as long as you're maintaining the same surcharge amount.
so we understand that. So we do have a motion, a second?
So real quick, one thing to think about, once the infrastructure is paid off, and that's in fiscal year 27, 28, we can really look at decreasing this quite a bit. The biggest thing was the cost of those new towers, all the new radios. So it was all the infrastructure, and the 1.6 million a year to get the infrastructure debt paid off is really where most of the money is going right now, so.
Commissioner Toomey?
Thank you. This is an annual approval, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And then we also maintained at $1.65 last fiscal year, right?
yes. So in 2017, it was $1.75. 2019, we dropped it down to $1.65, and we have maintained that throughout.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Drosha?
Kelly, you had mentioned earlier about reception issues in the city of Grand Ledge. Are those reception issues involved in this also?
No, so that's something we're keeping an eye on. So the schools have good reception right now. There's different things we could look at building a tower, but you're looking at $3 million for that. And so right now, we're depending on especially those local entities in Grand Ledge going and letting us know if they find any problematic areas, and so that we can address them. Now, moving forward, new construction that isn't schools, that type of stuff, we can also look at having requirements that they purchase BDAs to amplify radio service in their building. So that's something we could also do. But we would have to do a more in-depth study of what that would look like and how much it would help with coverage in that area.
That was,
And it's really only in-building coverage that's problematic. Outside, it's not.
that was the purpose of my question, whether we should be anticipating the possibility of yet another tower someplace to augment this, but you think it can be done internally that way with the building?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. So we addressed the schools. I don't know, a year or so ago, there was a BDA project that this helped funded to make sure that the reception in the schools were taken care of. So if we have anything that the first responders need to go into the school and have clear communication, that's working. And we test it. Also, it helps that we have school resource officers that are constantly on the radio in there, so we can ensure that they are getting their communication out to us without a problem. If one stops working by any means, they let us know immediately that their radio doesn't work, so.
Very good, thank you.
Commissioner Toomey, another question.
Thank you. One other question. So looking at the surcharge on 165, you know, on the bottom, we can all see the radio replacement after 10 years, which you talked about at fiscal year 30-31. Is that factored in already to that balance number on the bottom?
No, it is not.
So that does not look like you're going to hit that 8 million number.
Yeah, so there's different things we can do. So after, obviously, when the radio infrastructure is paid off, then we can keep it there for a year or so, and obviously, it's gonna build pretty quickly. But I also don't really have the manpower to replace police, fire, and EMS radios all at the same time. It is literally myself, Francis, and one of our supervisors. So we could do it in sections where 1 year we're replacing all law enforcement, the next year we're replacing fire and EMS. We can spread it out. We can also, we have the old radios that other counties can use that may not be able to afford nicer radios that are in warranty. And I mean, when anything breaks on these radios right now, we literally send it to Motorola and they fix them. And it costs us nothing,
How frequently does that happen?
quite often.
Okay. That's,
People run them over with fire trucks. They come in with a radio that got ran over with fire trucks. Usually the fire truck wins.
I'll choose to blame Motorola Solutions. So, okay. All right. And then the first time, I guess, that this was all done in 2017, not that it's an ideal situation, but if they do need to be replaced to stay in warranty, to save the county money long-term, would another debt payment be an option as well? Okay.
Yep, there's a lot of different ways we can do this. We can do it staggered through different fiscal years. We can look at debt, have debt payments. There's different options that we can look at. Also, if the board doesn't choose, we can go out of warranty and prolong them a little bit longer. It's just going to be a higher price in maintenance, and every 2 years we do preventative maintenance and make sure that they're tuned properly, because a radio is no good if it cannot communicate back and forth. And that 2-year mark is really important to get them tuned and make sure they're working properly.
Okay, thank you. Yep, we want to make sure you have the equipment to do your job, so.
I appreciate it.
I think go back, I heard a motion, and was there a second someplace we missed? You do or don't? Was it a second? All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next on agenda is emergency management reports.
Good afternoon, everybody. Our departmental report is included in there. You'll see just some monthly things that we completed over the course of planning, training, and exercise, some kind of the core things that we do. Have certainly been talking a lot about the plan synchronization process that we've been going through, kind of the brainchild that we've been working on over the last 3 years, but really started to execute it probably starting about a year ago, and we're really coming down to a time for approval. So I want to talk about that in a second. Just a couple other things to talk about that are going to occur over the course of this month. First thing, we are opening up our internship program still for 2025. We're opening that application process up tomorrow and accepting applications through the end of the month. Typically, we go direct with some colleges and universities that we form some relationships with. University of Olivet, Saginaw Valley State University, where I'm adjunct faculty at, Central Michigan, Michigan State, Lansing Community College. We typically go direct with them, and we promote that kind of internally with them. And the way we put it is, you know, we're not looking for an emergency management degree necessarily or a public safety degree. That's fine, but you know, sociology, political science, really any degree field to where you have this understanding of societal systems, you'll succeed in emergency management. So that's how we promote it. That's one of our requirements. Second one, just reside in Michigan. So that way we can bring in somebody, kind of show them the ropes, teach them a few things, take them to some really cool experiences. Again, that opens tomorrow, and we're accepting applications through the end of the month. We'll do a bit of a public information education blitz on social media, as well as, again, go direct with our colleges and universities. But if anybody meets those requirements and you think that they would be interested, please send them our way. Last thing on there that you'll see, and we're gonna have more information coming next month, but you're gonna start seeing kind of the public information campaign later this month, that wireless emergency alert test, the first of its kind in its country, where we're actually gonna activate all cell phones within Clinton, Eaton, and Ingham County next month as a part of Severe Weather Awareness Week at 12:59 p.m. on March 19th. Just showing that it is a test of our wireless emergency alert system, and it's going to be the first cross-jurisdictional test in the country, actually turning on all phones across 3 jurisdictions. And we can only do that because we have a memorandum of understanding in place with Clinton and Ingham County, as well as us. So it'll be kind of cool. We actually had some disaster researchers reach out to us, and we're going to conduct a little bit of research before and after the fact too, to try and drive some positive change within the alert, warning, and notification space within emergency management. So it should be kind of cool. We're really excited about it. To get to our plan sync, so just to talk about this, I've talked about it ad nauseum over the course of the last year, last month as well, but one of the things that we kind of found, a lot of the plans that we maintain, that we evaluate, that we review on a normal process, they were just kind of all over the place in terms of how we schedule those evaluation and maintenance processes. So a few years back, we're like, we got to get these on one single schedule. If you get these plans onto one single schedule, that'll talk to how you train to the plans. That'll talk how you hold different discussion-based and operations-based exercises to test the plans, all these different things. So we were trying to say, how can we get these on one synced schedule? And then we can adopt a plans maintenance policy. And then over the course of 4 to 5 years, depending on the plan, re-promulgate those according with our requirements. So we're actually at the point now where we can do it. So the one plan that's not highlighted in here, the multi-hazard mitigation plan, that's coming here in the next couple months. That's a very extensive review. It requires a large public comment period, followed by a review at the state level, which is where we're at right now. And then once it gets reviewed at the state level, it goes to FEMA, where they have 45 days by law. That's something that's going to come here in the next couple months. That's not in this plan sync, but that's really not a huge deal as it relates to some of these others that are on our set schedule. So just to highlight these real quick, the hazard identification and risk assessment, valuable resource for our emergency management partners and us to know our risk, understand risks that are reasonably likely to affect us here in Eaton County across natural hazards, technological hazards, and human-caused hazards. Publicly available and openly accessible on our website too, and has had a lot of good traffic, but we really want to promulgate this and kind of codify it within our maintenance process. The emergency operations plan talks about our response strategy. So when something happens, how do we respond to it as a county? Followed by a recovery plan, so our overarching recovery strategy. We know recovery is locally executed, state managed, and federally supported, so how do we execute it locally? How do we do cost recovery? That has that strategy in there. Continuity of government and departmental continuity of operations plan. So continuity of government, if something disrupts our services here at the county, how can we continue our essential functions? And then the departmental continuity of operations plans. Those are department-specific. Those highlight the specific departmental essential functions, vital records, critical systems, things that they need to continue in order to continue the essential services for the county. Followed by our training plan, as well as our exercise evaluation and corrective action plan. Really just highlight internal and external requirements that we have in terms of how we train and then how we actually test our plans, policies, procedures, and evaluate equipment, facilities, people. That's what those 2 plans are. And then this last one, our prevention overview, really highlights the processes for proactively coordinating prevention activities, the actions that we take to avoid an incident, intervene, or stop an incident from occurring, or limit the impacts of hazards. That's what that one is. So I could have submitted all these documents to you. You would have had thousands and thousands of pages though. So what we did is created a 2-pager that really highlighted the purpose, as well as kind of the documents within the documents, if you will, the documents that make up the entirety of the plan was our goal with this 2-pager. Again, if we promulgate these today, take them to the full board later this month. Then we'll be on our set schedule, which will really, really help our office in terms of kind of how we execute a lot of other tasks going forward. It is my understanding from the board chair, because there are so many, it sounds like you can move them all as one slate, is my understanding.
Okay. I'll shorten things up. So we're looking for any questions from, sound like there's a lot we could get questions for, but, so I entertain a motion to accept this. Yeah, it would be A through I, correct? Yeah. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second.
There's a lot there. Yeah.
Any other comments? I guess all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I can talk about the memorandum of agreement with the Federal Emergency Management Agency too, unless, was that part of that group? I can talk about it separately, which it is technically a separate document.
Okay. I seen them all together. I thought you covered.
Oh,
So you have
yes.
any more comments?
Yeah, just to talk about that memorandum of agreement, this is our third cycle with us since I've been here. Basically, that allows us to utilize the integrated public alert and warning system, which is our ability to alert and warn the public through cell phone usage. Again, if you think about Amber Alerts, that's the integrated public alert and warning system. So that really loud shrill that comes to your phone when there's an imminent life safety situation or a public safety alert that we deem necessary to alert mass amounts of the public. This memorandum of agreement allows us to continue to use that. We initiated that agreement back in 2019, redid our MOA back in 2022 because it's a 3-year agreement, and we're up again for another renewal. So that's just what that was.
Thank you.
Yep, and
So I-
unless there are any other questions, that concludes my report for the month.
So do we need to separate I from the rest of them? That was my misunderstood. Separate the memorandum
It was part of my motion, so I think it's.
of the memorandum. Okay, that works then. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Next week, we have the prosecutor's office to give us a report.
Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, Chairman. You look really good up there. My name is Doug Lloyd, and I am your Eaton County Prosecutor. I will let you know that I do not have any documents you will need to move, so we don't need to worry about finding support. I do find it difficult to always have to follow Kelly and Ryan. They are uplifting, they are positive. Kelly has millages and surcharges, and so her life is good. And so those are wonderful things that that some of us don't have, but do appreciate that others do. So as I promised, I would begin going through with you each month, either myself or Chief Assistant Anderson, and giving you some numbers as to what's taking place within the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office. And one of the things I will say is that through IT, the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office has actually moved over to a system called Carpel. Now, those of you who were on the board last year actually heard us talk about that. It's a great system. Almost every county within the state is actually moving over to it. It's allowing for a lot better transparency. Chris Anderson has really become the guru in our office with it, and we are finding that we can run numbers now that were a lot more difficult than they were last year. For example, in January, we were able to determine that the felonies and misdemeanors and juveniles, we had 322 cases referred to us by the law enforcement agencies within our county. We actually charged 144 of those. We declined to charge, or we sent back for further investigation, 35 of those, and we still have 143 within our system that my attorneys are having to deal with. Now, understand, I have 11 attorneys, 9 of them are actually handling these cases. So for this month, you can average that about 36 cases each were sent to my attorneys to review. And as I've talked about previously, what that means is that they're going to get the police reports, the body cams, any and all other documents that come with it, and those reports take time to review. Now, the question can become, well, gosh, they only had 35 reports to have to review. How bad is that? Well, we also had the ability to go and look at dockets and hearings, and that means that in this courthouse, we have 5 judges who each have their own docket, which means that they set their cases for the times that they want and the amount of cases that they want to hear. And if they are criminal cases or they are juvenile cases, then that means that I will have an attorney showing up to have to deal with those cases. Last month, we had 825 hearings that my attorneys had to attend. But that's not all. You would think, well, that's kind of a lot. That seems like a lot, and probably all the prosecutor's office should have to do, and I would agree with you. That should be all we have to do, but I have over 500 responsibilities as your elected prosecutor, and so there's more. Last month, we attended mental commitment hearings. Now, the probate judges here in the Tri-County area have made an agreement that each one of them will take a certain amount of times and actually preside over the mental commitment hearings. As part of those mental commitment hearings, the prosecutor's office is there in the prosecutorial role in determining how we are going to handle the individuals who have been committed. Will they stay or will they go? And if they have to stay, will we have to present evidence over that? Now, in Eaton County, if Judge Pollard has a date that she is attending, then my attorney from the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office will have to attend with her. We handled 23 mental commitment hearings last month. Now, there's also a third thing called a personal protection order. This is generally something between the courts and an individual. You have a situation where you and an individual are not getting along. You can ask for a personal protection order to keep that individual away from you. We do not get involved in that process generally. That is process of the individuals and the courts. But if there is a violation which could lead up with an individual going to jail, we could get involved with that. We had to attend 4 of those PPO hearings last month. I also have an attorney that deals specifically in appeals cases. So after a case is handled either through a plea or trial and they are sentenced, that individual has rights to go and appeal that to the appeals court and the state Supreme Court. That individual is writing briefs, and generally they are long briefs. He is having to take the time to go through all the documents and transcripts of all those hearings that my trial attorney handled and then prepare an answer to some brief. He had to do 4 hearings in regards to that, meaning that he had to leave the courthouse and go up to Lansing and argue either in front of the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court on 4 specific cases. We also have our economic crime unit up in the Lansing Mall. Last month, they had 49 cases that they actually completed and were able to run through. Interesting things that happen every time there is a hearing that we have to bring witnesses in, whether it be officers or it be lay witnesses. Our office has to prepare the subpoenas for that hearing. And last month, we had to prepare subpoenas for 40 different hearings, meaning that, not meaning that maybe all 40 hearings went, but it meant that my attorneys had to prepare the cases in the belief that they were going to actually go, and my legal assistants had to put the documents together to send out for these people to actually be told they must show up. We also, one of the things that we have to do is that if we have a case that is sitting in one of our courts and the defendant is located either in prison or in a jail in another place, we have the responsibility for creating the writs to make sure that that individual actually shows up for court. We had to do 35 of those last month. And what that really means, and the sheriff can correct me if I'm wrong, is that from his corrections, if the individual is not sitting in MDOC, meaning prison, then it's going to be the jail, the Eaton County Sheriff's Department jail, that is going to have to go pick them up. The longest one last month, they had to travel to Sheboygan County, which is basically the tip of the lower peninsula, upper tip of the lower peninsula. Usually that would take 2 officers who would have to travel the 4 hours one way in order to pick up the individual and travel the 4 hours back. 8 hours spent for us to bring one individual back for court. And then the final number I'll give you is that every time that we issue a case, we are going to provide discovery. That means all the documents that we've already reviewed, the police reports, the body cams, any other type of evidence, we're going to send that out to defense counsel, whether it be the defender's office or it be a private attorney. My legal assistants had to do that 442 times last month. So a lot of numbers there, but a lot of things that we do that, are more than the fact that we just go to court and wait around until a court hearing is called. But when we do go to court, I'd like to actually highlight a couple of my attorneys for a couple of good deeds that they did. Robin Norlock actually did a 4-day jury trial last week. That was a 10-count complaint. Basic facts were that 3 little girls, 14 and 15, petite young ladies, were down in the Bellevue area on a summer evening at the corner of a road, basically doing social media stuff, whether it be TikTok or Snapchat or whichever it was. And the owner of the property observed them through either cameras or intercoms and came rushing down to the scene. By this time, the little girls were walking back to their home down a dead-end street, and he jumped out behind them and began screaming at them to get on the ground, get on the ground. And when they did not do so, he began firing shots over their head. Needless to say, the little girls got on the ground, and it continued from there. We charged 10 counts in that matter. It was a 4-day jury trial. Within 3 hours, the citizens of Eaton County came back and found the defendant guilty of all 10 counts. Those counts were of such that he was required to go to jail, where he now sits waiting sentencing. Another case we had was an assault with intent to commit murder, or actually attempted murder. And generally on cases of that significance, I try to have 2 attorneys work together. It incorporates 2 things. One, I usually have a senior attorney running the case, a younger attorney doing it with them for experience, but also in case of bad things happening. In this particular case, because we are short-staffed, I did not have a second attorney, and I get to the day of jury selection, and my deputy chief, Adam Strong, shows up without a voice and not feeling well at all. Chris Anderson steps in and does the voir dire for him. Voir dire is when you are asking the jurors, whether they can be impartial and sit on a jury. So it doesn't take the in-depth knowledge of a case, but as long as you have the experience, which Chris Anderson did. So Chris Anderson picked the jury. We did not swear the jury in. The circuit court judge made the determination that in case Adam would not be able to go on Monday, we would not swear the jury in. Sure enough, Adam Strong ends up in urgent care on Saturday, unable to come to work on Monday, absolutely no voice, fever and all of that, and so the case had to be mistried for us to try again. But that was a week's worth of period of time that Adam had met with his witnesses, had gone through the evidence, had prepared for trial, let alone the court taking the time, setting the time aside, as well as the defense attorney. And for circumstances beyond our control, we'll now have to prepare and do it all over again. And we had a third case where one of my younger attorneys who's now doing circuit court work Jacob, did a trial, a sexting case. And sexting is basically a sting operation where the individuals, adults are acting like children and chatting with individuals for sex, for them to meet up to have sex. In this particular case, Jacob prepared for it. He did the jury trial. It was a hung jury trial of 11 guilty, 1 not guilty. Well, in a case like that, we're going to obviously try it again, but once again, that will mean that that we will have to prepare, have to subpoena the witnesses, have to take the time from the court to do all of that over again. That's 3 cases that happened within the month. I'd also like to point out something too, because I asked my attorneys, hey, what happened that was important to you? And Adam gave me something that, you know, he's actually proud of, that goes to show you what we do at the prosecutor's office. We don't just attempt to send people to jail. We don't attempt to send people to prison. Our job is to help the community and make the community better. Basically, he had a 64-year-old individual living here in Charlotte. From October 24 to November 24, we had 3 cases with the person stemming all from mental health issues. The first 2 cases were minor, a couple of 90-day misdemeanors. The third case ends up being assault with a dangerous weapon, which was against her daughter the week of Thanksgiving. Basically what happens is her daughter is attempting to help her and petitions for a involuntary commitment from her probate court. And they had attempted to do this, and while they were working with the Charlotte Police Department, this person would not come out of the house. And when they tried to get her out of the house, she actually, the individual, the defendant, actually pulls a gun. Now, it's later determined to be a BB gun, but it was a gun. Fortunately, the police officers were doing the right thing, and we didn't end up with something greater. But because of that, on a weekend, Adam Strong has to create search warrants which allow those officers to go in. Those officers to go in and make an arrest and actually do a search, which they do. But the whole goal of this is that we know there are mental health issues. And once they get her arrested, was that they were able to actually get the individual out and then get her mental health treatment, and in the process, get her healthy. And we were able to move these cases along and make them where this 64-year-old woman did not end up with a worse charge than she actually needed to. But this required my assistant prosecutor, Adam Strong, to actually speak to police, speak to the family, speak to community mental health, meet with community mental health, and actually bring all of these groups together in order to help this one individual who was having a mental break. That, you know, in a sense, is what I would deem above and beyond what a general prosecutor's office would do, but in our office, it's not, or it hasn't been, because that leads me to my last thing. Within the last week, I've had resignations from a legal assistant and an assistant prosecutor. I will now be short 2 attorneys and 2 legal assistants. When I asked them why, the obvious thing is that I've been telling you for as long as I've worked here, they can make more money someplace else. One is going to the state, one is going to a neighboring county. I can tell you for a fact that they will do less work than they do in Eaton County while obtaining that more money. And the third element is that it would provide them clarity of not having to worry about the millage. Because see, as they talk, they notice that the social media posts regarding the millage this time were more visceral. But yet us as elected prosecutors, or elected officials, seemed more quiet. And so it was easier for them to accept the money than it was to worry about what y'all were going to do if the millage fails. And I'll be honest, I mean, congratulations to the sheriff on the grants. Good for him if he wants to go for them. I'm in quite the pessimistic mood, and so I have made the determination with my staff that I will not seek filling those positions at this moment until I have an understanding of what happens in May. But what that means is that my office will change because, you know, instead of 35 warrants for the month of February, now they're going to have 40 or 45 warrants on top of that. The numbers will build to an unsustainable amount. Finally, I will point out that I do find it funny, and I have to just comment that, you know, when people make the comment of the mismanagement of funds, I had our controller actually help me on this. 93% of my budget goes to employment costs. So about $200,000 is the only money that is not going to employees in my office. So when you hear the number that there is a mismanagement of funds, I welcome anyone here or listening on YouTube to give me a call. Let's talk about where the mismanagement of funds is occurring. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, other than thank you for your time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Prosecutor Lloyd. The next on the agenda would be trial courts. There's someone here for trial courts. I see him, yeah.
Hi there. I'm Catherine Price. I've met some of you, not all of you. I am the Eaton County Juvenile Court Director and Attorney Referee. I'm here to talk about the Child and Parent Legal Representation Grant. I have to think a second to come up with those words because in my mind it's the CPLR. This will be, well, I do first want to make a couple of clarifying points in the grant request requirements that you all should have received. There's 11 items on there. Number 6, that should state federal. It's a pass-through the state, so it is federal. And then number 8, just to clarify, well, yes, we do submit quarterly reports to MDHHS for the grants that we've already been managing for 5 years, this grant. Financial reports also go to the controller's office, and they make sure, which we appreciate. No complaints there. Just, I know that you've all received this, and it's brief, so probably read it. Just to quickly outline the grant, the purpose of the grant is to make sure that parents in child protective proceedings have attorneys who are well prepared and show up to all parts of the case. So we all expect the attorneys to show up to the hearings, but in these kinds of cases, there are meetings that happen behind the scenes where decisions are made about the course of the case, how MDHHS plans to proceed with the case. And it's important that the attorneys are there to advise their clients and to help problem solve because they know their clients better than a lot of the other people in the system. And then it also helps them to be prepared for court. So the grant encourages the attorneys to attend additional trainings, encourages them to seek mentorship if they're new to our process here. So we have experienced attorneys who are coming to us. For instance, we just got a new attorney who had been at our public defender office here. He's now in solo practice, but he's joined our roster, having never handled these kinds of cases. And he was able to be matched up with an experienced attorney who has been practicing in this area of law for a long time and work with her with his cases before having to represent someone and while representing someone. So that's a fantastic opportunity. What that means for us, though, on our end, is that there's a 25% reimbursement for attorney fees that we are on the hook for anyway. we have to make sure that parents in these proceedings have attorneys. That's a legal requirement. It's not something we could skip if we didn't do the grant. So it really just helps us not only make sure that those attorneys are doing an excellent job, which they are, but also helps to make sure that we don't pay as much for that. Let's see, I wanted to make sure that you know some dates. The intent to apply is due at the end of February for this grant. And then the application will be available, I think it's June or July in the summer. And then the grant runs from October 1st through the end of September, just like our fiscal year. Are there any questions? Whoa.
Commissioner Toomey, go ahead.
Just a quick question, since this is this is a federal grant that's being passed through to the state. Was this one of them at all that would have been affected by the proposed funding pauses, or we were never given that indication?
No, not that indication at all.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
So this is an action item, so we're looking for a motion to, got a motion, second, and a second. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Do we have any miscellaneous next on the agenda?
There is no miscellaneous.
No miscellaneous. We are now at a limited public comment period. If there's any comments from the public. I do not see any. We will be adjourned. Thank you, everyone.